figure out what's going on, how can you know immediately? It's very simple. You go to the view menu and the trading menu. I must work out how to use the software. You go to the trading menu, Sentient Trading Method, and you turn that on. And immediately Sentient Trader will pop up some shapes there. Let me just turn off those semicircles, and let me go back to daily, and you can see there in the shapes that are listed at the foot of the chart. You can see there immediately inverted bear. That's an inverted bear shape, and it's at the 54-month cycle level. That is really quite dangerous. Okay, an inverted shape at the 54-month cycle level is a sign that there is something potentially wrong, not definitely wrong. An analysis is impossible to achieve without some inverted shapes somewhere. I've yet to see an analysis that does not have a single inverted shape somewhere, but usually inverted shapes start happening around about the 20-day cycle level or the 10-day cycle level, or a really good analysis will have inverted shapes only down at the 5-day level. Okay, so having an inverted shape at the 54-month cycle level is a sure sign that there is something wrong with this analysis. So what do you do? My antivirus software has popped up. So what do you do? Well, again, you very simply create a new chart in Sentient Trader. Okay, so I've created a new chart, and I've called this new chart Shift 54 Month, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to shift that 54-month cycle over. Is it easy to do? It is extremely easy to do in Sentient Trader. All you need to do is you change your analysis start period. Okay, let me show you how that works. Create a chart in Sentient Trader. You have to tell Sentient Trader what part of the data to look at, if you like, and you can see the candlestick bars on this particular chart are all full color. Okay, full Technicolor, green and red bars. Okay, that means the Sentient Trader is analyzing the entire data series. All right, and I did that because I think that's quite a good way to start. You start with absolutely everything. Now, the easiest way to influence the analysis that Sentient Trader is performing is to very simply change the analysis start period. So now, what's the logic to this? How do you do that? Well, what I want to do is I want to try to get Sentient Trader not to position the 54-month cycle there and here and here. Okay, so what's the easiest way of doing that? The simplest way of doing that is to not include one of these troughs, and obviously it has to be the first trough in this example. The simplest way of doing it is not to include this first trough in the analysis. Okay, so I simply choose an analysis start period over there. So I'm going to tell Sentient Trader only perform an analysis from there forwards. Okay, and so how do you do that? Well, you simply click with your mouse somewhere over there, and you look at the bar number. It's bar number 970, and so then you create a new chart within this workspace, which of course I did, and I clicked on the analysis period button, and I told it to start the analysis at bar 980, as you can see over there. Okay. And now you can see that the bars before bar number 980 are all grayed out. Okay, they're not full Technicolor. They're grayed out, which tells us that Sentient Trader is not including them in the analysis. And of course, Sentient Trader is only performing an analysis on the period from there to there. Okay, so let's see what happened with Sentient Trader performing its analysis on that basis. And so let's zoom in and I'll show you. First of all, Sentient Trader is positioned a 4.5-year cycle trough back here in August of 2004. Now, that is clearly wrong. However, when you're performing an analysis using Hurst cyclic principles, it's very important to remember that you're performing the analysis to get an understanding of what's happening now. Okay, if your analysis is wrong 7 years ago, okay, which is the case here, almost 7 years ago, August 2004, then you really don't need to worry too much about it. If there's a clear error 7 years ago, don't worry about it. What's important is how good the analysis looks in the more recent time period, okay, which is of course this time period over here. All right, that's what's important. All right, you're trading today and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Well, of course, tomorrow's Easter, and I know many people are already on their Easter break. Obviously, you won't be trading tomorrow, but what I'm trying to say is that if you're trading in the near term, you're trading now. You're not trading 7 years ago. Okay, so an analysis which has a clear and obvious discrepancy or error 7 years ago, that is not important. What is important is whether the analysis looks more reasonable in the near term, the most recent time period. So let's zoom in and see what this analysis is saying has been happening more recently. All right. First of all, the analysis, and let me just see if I can get a scale that works here. There we go. If I display it weekly, that looks quite good. Right, let's turn off the semicircles first of all. No, actually I'll leave them on. It's easier to visualize with the semicircles. And right, here we go. Okay, so what does this analysis say? Well, first of all, the analysis tells us that the 4.5 year cycle troughed in March of 2009. Okay. In other words, the March of 2009 trough was a more prominent cycle trough than the August or October trough of 2011. So that immediately makes more sense to me. Okay. So I feel good about that. How else can you look at this analysis and get an idea as to whether it's a good analysis or not? I use a really stupid, simple process when I'm considering an analysis, which is a really easy way of doing it, but it has to do, of course, with cycle shapes. I very simply look at the cycle shapes that are happening in this market. All right, this is going back all the way to 2009. The first thing to notice is how the market has pretty much stayed within this orange semicircle. You see this orange semicircle which pops up out of the top of the chart. Okay, the market has stayed very nicely within that orange semicircle. The orange semicircles are purely indications of the different cycles that are playing out in the market. But when a semicircle looks as though it contains the market action perfectly, and it's not quite perfect, of course. If it was perfect, it would be more like that line that I've drawn, like that over there. Let me not confuse things by drawing two lines at the same time. A perfect orange semicircle would look something like that line that I've drawn there. Okay, I hope you can see that. When the market does that and it just fits neatly into those semicircles, it doesn't have any technical meaning in terms of Hurst. Okay, but when working with Sentient Trader, I find that usually is a really clear indication that the cyclic picture is unfolding perfectly according to this analysis. So when I see that, I start getting warm, fuzzy feelings about the analysis. Perhaps I'm the only person who gets warm, fuzzy feelings about analyses, but when I see that, it gives me a feeling of satisfaction, because it means that I think this analysis is really beginning to work. Okay, what's happening in the shorter term picture? Well, again, I look at the wave shapes. I find the wave shapes. I know I go on about it, and I sometimes get a bit boring about it, but the wave shapes are really terribly important. So what's happening in the wave shapes here? Well, let's look at these 18-month cycles. Okay, here is the wave shape of the first 18-month cycle. It's a beautiful, perfect wave shape. Okay, so it's a perfectly structured wave shape, and I won't go into details now. If you're interested, then of course we can talk more about it. What about the next 18-month cycle? Again, it's a perfect wave shape. Okay, what about the next 18-month cycle? Well, we don't know yet. Okay, so we're not sure what's happening there. So the wave shapes make sense. They're just beautiful. There aren't any there aren't any inverted patterns there. Could you have known that without the experience that I have of looking at wave shapes? Because of my obsession with wave shapes, yes. You simply turn on the sentient trading method, and you can see there your wave shapes listed within the semicircles there, and you can see there's not a single inverted wave shape all the way down to the 20-week cycle. So that's a really good sign. Okay. Now, we're nearly getting to the end of my discussion of the Australian markets and what's happening, but I am feeling much happier about this analysis by having moved the 54-month cycle. I think that just makes sense. It gives us a much better analysis for the period since March of 2009. We could have a very long, fascinating discussion about what the implications are of this trough being a 4.5-year cycle, but there isn't time for it now. It's something we can discuss next time, perhaps. But this analysis looks good for the time since March of 2009. Now, again, we've got this problem with the August the 9th, 2011 trough, as opposed to the early October 2011 trough. Again, I'm very unhappy with that. I want to move it. How do I do it? Well, again, it's really, really simple. I do it by simply creating a new chart and applying the same expert model that I applied to that chart earlier, and there we go. There we have the 18-month cycle trough positioned on the 4th of October. So finally, we get to a state where we have an analysis that I believe works. Okay, it didn't take me long to do in Sentient Trader. It was really quick to do, but here we have an analysis that I believe works and represents a very viable picture of what's happening in your market or the Australian market at the moment. Okay, and so there you can see it. I think this is a very viable, very valid analysis, and this is certainly if I was trading the Australian market, this is the analysis that I would start with. Okay, it would position the 4.5-year cycle trough in March of 2009, and it would position the 18-month cycle trough, the second 18-month cycle trough in early October 2011. So, of course, the big question, the reason why you do this analysis, it's all very interesting to look at it, but why do we do an analysis? We do it, of course, so that we know how we should be trading tomorrow. So it would be cruel of me just to show you an analysis and not talk about what's going to happen next. So let's talk about that for a moment, and let's talk about what is going to happen next. Let me just shift this chart around a little bit. Okay, and there we go. So what is going to happen next? Well, let's see if these semicircles. Yeah, the semicircles look quite interesting. Okay. So where are we, and what's happening, and what's going to happen next? Well,